Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cover One Roundup here, live on the Cover One YouTube channel, or subsequently wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, Kyle Silagyi, joined this and most weeks by Cover One features writer Rob Quinn. And oh boy, do we have some talking to do today. I don't think this is a conversation, or these are conversations either of us anticipated having this week. I was pretty adamant on last week's podcast, which you were not here. David Fox filled in quite admirably, I will say. David killed it last week. But we basically said last week, you don't have to worry about the Jags. Like, well, you shouldn't look over them. You shouldn't look past them. But the Bills are just a better team, right? They'll take care of them. Buffalo Bills lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars by the score of 9-6 in Week 9. We're going to discuss our takeaways from that game. We're not going to discuss what went right. We're just going to talk about what went wrong. And then I don't know. I don't know what else we're going to do, to be honest with you. We'll just see how it goes.
We'll just commiserate for this hour and get it out of our system.
We'll see if we survive this hour. So, yeah, I think that's all the intro we need. Rob, how are you?
I'm doing good. I could be better. I drove 5 hours each way to Jacksonville with a buddy of mine to see the Bills win. I said, hey, we're going to go up there, see Josh Allen light it up, and just have a good time. And that was not the case. We didn't even get to see a touchdown. But I did get to experience Bucky's on the way home. So I guess that was a silver lining for my weekend. But yeah, not a good trip.
We'll get into Bucky's in a couple of seconds here because I want to take as much time before we can get into this game as we can. You know, the further we can push it off, the better. But before we do that, this podcast and Cover One in general are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. And the Underdog people are rejoicing right now that Rob is back to do the ad read because I probably butchered it last week. I don't know if I butchered it, but certainly didn't do well. So, Rob, tell us a little bit about Underdog Fantasy.
So Underdog Fantasy is an awesome app for your daily fantasy sports, whether you want to play player props, all types of different things, best ball, which is something that I got into this season. It's really awesome and really the new way that fantasy sports are going in this daily grind that everyone is getting interested in this season. So you can use the promo code COVER1 and get $10 of a deposit of $25. It's your last chance for this free money. So use the promo code COVER1 and get in on the action.
Yes, if your fantasy team, your season-long fantasy team isn't doing well, give Underdog a try. You know, I wouldn't know anything about my season-long fantasy team not doing well. I just made the trade of the century. I got Justin Jefferson and Derrick Henry in my keeper league. People are talking maybe the best trade ever made. I won't tell you who I gave up, though. So we're going to move in to the Roundup here. This, of course, is the segment where we talk about the latest news, rumors, and storylines surrounding the Buffalo Bills in a roundup fashion, in a brief manner. And apparently we do food reviews now because I said so. So as Rob said, he went to the game yesterday in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida, down there in Duval, or actually up there for you, right? Up there in Duval?
Yep.
Going north up there is Jacksonville
to the cold.
Is it a city?
It is a city. It's a very strange city. I will say that. Like the outskirts are like very country. There next to my hotel, there was a strip club called Wacko's next to a coin laundry and a smoke shop and a porn shop. So that was very interesting. But then downtown, there's the river and like the high rises and all that. So it's a very odd city, but it is a city nonetheless.
Beautiful city. I'm sure. So I don't want to get the Jacksonville people on me. All a Jacksonville person has to do is respond, "You live in Buffalo," and then
right.
Done. But I like Buffalo. So you said that you went to a place called Bucky's. This is a place that I'd never heard of, but you tweeted about a brisket sandwich yesterday. So you had my attention. So we're going to devote this roundup to Bucky's. What the hell is this place?
So Bucky's I've heard of it. They have like a cult following in the South. Like I guess North Florida is more South than South Florida for anybody who knows like the people in those regions, but it's in Texas and things like that. And it's a giant gas station that's the size of a supermarket. And I walk in and it's like a Cracker Barrel meets Home Goods meets Wegmans for all the Buffalo people here, and it's very strange. There was like a wall of just beef jerky and every flavor you could imagine, and candy, and then they have brisket sandwiches, which I heard are amazing. And now a gas station brisket sandwich wasn't exactly the thing that I thought that I would be doing on a Sunday afternoon in Jacksonville, but after a loss, I thought
that's the only food to eat there.
Right. God wouldn't give me food poisoning after driving 5 hours to Jacksonville to see a 9-6 football game with no touchdown. So I bit the bullet and ate a brisket sandwich, and it was incredible. And I will definitely be going back to Bucky's next time I am in Jacksonville, which I don't anticipate being anytime soon.
Maybe for a playoff game one day.
Maybe. Yep, maybe.
Urban Meyer's turning that ship around. But like, yeah, that's akin to, the Jim Stakeout run after a brutal Bills loss when you're, tailgated all day out in the cold. You're just like, I just need a disgusting whatever hoagie. But yeah, what is it better than Jim Stakeout?
It was weird. They were like pre-made. They were made right in front of you, but like put out on a shelf. So you just grab it like wrapped in foil. But it was good. I'm not going to lie. It was very good. Very good. I had barbecue the night before, which was terrible. So Bucky's gas station brisket was better than
you gave Jacksonville
Rivers.
2 shots at barbecue.
Two shots, and the gas station won.
I don't think we have to. I think that wraps up Jacksonville talk, right? Just like I gave them 2 shots at barbecue on the gas station. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about this Jacksonville Jaguars team in relation to the Buffalo Bills, because the Jacksonville Jaguars, the poster child of dysfunction, right, in the NFL for as long as I've been watching football, right? I'm 24 years old. I've been watching football consistently probably for 15 to 20 years. The Jags have had one good team, right? They're always the team that you can look at. Like, they're always the team that you can count on to rebuild in Madden, because they typically have nothing. They have a few good players, but they're always, they seem like their coach is on the outs. Like, they never have a good quarterback. Like, they have pieces now, but they're certainly not as good as the Buffalo Bills. They certainly should not have defeated the Super Bowl contending Buffalo Bills, regardless of where the game was played. But unfortunately, they did. So, Rob, before we get into the takeaways from this game, just what are your overarching thoughts?
It was just an ugly, ugly game all around, man. It was just, and I don't think Shaq Griffin was wrong when he was talking about after the game about the lack of energy on the sidelines. I was with a friend. He's not even a Bills fan, and he was just like, he's like, look, these guys don't even look like they're playing a game. Everyone was just sitting on the bench. No one was talking to each other. We were right behind the Bills bench, and it was just there was nothing going on. So it was just an ugly game. They came out flat, and the final score shows that.
Yeah, just gross. That's really the only way to describe this game. It's just top to bottom. I mean, the defense played well, did what it had to do. We'll get into that. But, I guess we can only start with the takeaways, right? And we have to talk about what was probably the biggest flaw in this game, and that was the Bills' offensive line play. Obviously, things got, shifted a bit, given that Spencer Brown is out again with a back injury, I believe, and John Feliciano was placed on IR with a calf strain. So he's out for at least the next 2 games, and, including yesterday, or he'll miss 3 total probably. I don't know what I'm talking about, but my brain hasn't recovered from losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Give me a break. So, yes, they roll out there with Dawkins, Ike Butker, Mitch Morse, Cody Ford, and Darrell Williams. And as you guys could probably expect, didn't go particularly well. Josh Allen was under pressure throughout the majority of the game, sacked 4 times, hit 8 times. Rob, you sent out a tweet earlier. He was pressured how many times total?
21 times. It's the 3rd time this season that he's been pressured over 20 times in a game.
It's not very good. Dawkins allowed 1 sack, 5 total pressures. Butker, 1 sack, 5 total pressures. Ford, 1 sack, 5 total pressures. Williams, 1 sack, 5 total pressures. Mitch Morse, the standout, with 3 total pressures, which is not, I mean, that's fine. But like, when that's the standout on your offensive line, you didn't have a very good day on your offensive line. Again, just consistent pressure for Josh Allen. Really couldn't get anything going. And Allen didn't play his best game, certainly. Made a few weird decisions, a few bad decisions as the game went on. But as we said after the Pittsburgh loss, which is probably, I mean, it's not the last game where he was under this much pressure, but it was the last game in which this much pressure was visible. I think it was like that game, just he could not do anything because he was under pressure all the time. And this game, under pressure 21 times, just really couldn't get anything going. You can't really expect any quarterback, regardless of his talent level, regardless of his skill level, to perform when he's being pressured like every other snap, seemingly. And then they didn't do well running the ball either. Like the offensive line, not good in pass protection, not good in run protection. Not that they tried to run the ball all that much. Moss and Singletary only combined for 9 touches, but just not good enough. It's simply not good enough from the offensive line.
Yeah, it was just a terrible showing all around. Cody Ford had his lunch taken by somebody who was a bust. Taven Bryant was a first-round draft pick in 2018, had 3.5 sacks in his career, and was really on his way out in Jacksonville. If they had a roster of competent players that could replace him, he wouldn't even be on the team. And he had 2 sacks. He would just struggle. He looked completely lost. I watched the game on broadcast again today, and it was so ugly. Just the stunts and lack of communication, and he had no idea what was going on. There was a play when Josh Allen he spun out and made had a great completion, but he spun out and Ford was right in front of him looking to give help, and it was just like, what are you doing? Darrell Williams was just getting beaten one-on-ones. Butker could not anchor against the bull rush. Dawkins looked slow. It was a bad showing all across the board. And that was just in pass protection. And then run blocking, they had no movement at the line of scrimmage. Jacksonville was just swarming to the ball just immediately. 2.9 yards per carry, like you said, is just, you're not gonna win football games like that. But even though that they weren't running effectively, they completely abandoned the run again. And you brought up the Pittsburgh game, and it was eerily similar to that. They were getting pressure with their front four, dropping 7 and playing coverage with 2 deep high shell. And once again, they abandoned the run. I think in week 1, they ran like 13 designed runs with running backs and passed 51 times. Yesterday was more of the same. Allen threw it 47 times and they ran the ball 9 times. And again, a close 1-score game. Brian Dable needs to answer for that. I think even though that you're not running the ball, you need to stay honest, because you can say, oh, the run's not working, but the pass isn't either. And if you're going to blame the defense playing a too high shell and saying what does that tell you? They're daring you to run the football, and then you can't run. And when you can't run, they're going to get pressure with 4, and it's just a recipe for disaster. But the offensive line was bad. Cody Ford should not play another game for the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills need to figure something out quick if they want to even push for a playoff spot at this rate.
But that's a bit
not for
wild.
A playoff spot, but a playoff win. If they want to win a game in the playoffs, the offensive line has to get fixed.
I'll give you that. But like, I don't know how they fix it, right? Like they just need guys. That's the issue, is that they're not healthy, right? They need guys to get healthy. But even when those guys come back, they go from really bad offensive line to average offensive line, right? Like Spencer Brown's a rookie. Like, I think that says something about the state of your offensive line, where like, they have an awful performance and you're like, oh, the 3rd-round pick from Northern Iowa's hurt. Like when he comes back, that'll, make things better. Where it's like, it probably will, but I mean, that's just, I don't think you should be in that position. I don't know. The people on I don't think the fixes are on the roster, but I also don't think they're not on the roster, if that makes sense. I don't know what they can do at this point to fix the offensive line.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's above my head. That's probably something that Eric might be able to give a little more insight into from a film standpoint. But it just comes down to talent, and they just don't have the players there. I think they oversold themselves on Cody Ford during the offseason. And we talked about it on the first episode of the show. I said Cody Ford should not be on this team or as starter, like at all. And I think I gave Ike Butker too much credit for seeing him just be average last season in place of Cody Ford. But at the end of the day, they didn't make a move to get an offensive guard or in the draft or free agency. They didn't do anything at the trade deadline. And now it's an issue, because not only are their average starters hurt, but their backups are playing, and it's a second-round draft pick you traded up for and said he was one of the best 5 offensive linemen you had, and he is getting embarrassed, just smoked on and looking lost on every play that he's out there. So, I mean, you got to figure something out. You got to switch up the scheme, and you don't tell me that it's because your offense sucks because you're playing too deep. Like, that's the most basic coverage that Josh Allen spent all offseason saying that he worked on in-breaking routes. Those are cover 2 beaters. So something has to give, and they got to figure something out.
John Herring writes, if we could actually run the ball, I think if they had a good offensive line, that the running would at least be easier, right? Like with, like I like Zach Moss, right? And Devin Singletary has been okay at points this year. Made a few good plays yesterday. He's made a few good plays throughout the year, but like it's so tough because I can't throw in the towel on either of them because the offensive line hasn't played well, right? Like I cannot firmly say Zach Moss is not the answer at running back just because I haven't seen him behind a competent offensive line for the most part. Yeah, it's just tough, man. With Cody Ford, he should not be, as you said, he really should not be playing. But they backed themselves into this corner where he has to be playing unless they want Ryan Bates to play. Like I think Eric tweeted earlier.
Yeah, and Bates has been there for 3 years. So if you're not going to play him, then that's an indictment on the coaching staff and well, not really the coaching staff, but the front office as well. If you've had him on the roster for 3 years as this do-it-all lineman and you won't put him on the field, that's an indictment of his talent if you can't get him on the field over Cody Ford. I mean, that says something. But this staff, I think they want to milk everything they can out of Cody Ford and see if there's anything there before they have to cut him loose, just praying that he'll put it together, but it's just not happening. And like, you understand that you want to get some type of production and give your second-round draft pick the benefit of the doubt, but it's hurting your offense as a whole. And they got to go in another direction, whether it's Bates or Jameel Douglas, who they called up, or just keep Butker out there. But Butker just didn't look strong enough. And I don't know. It's going to be tough. And I mean, give the Jags credit. They had, I think, the number 3 run defense in terms of yards per carry allowed. But this isn't a good defense with that great of talent across where we could say, oh, it's the Steelers with TJ Watt and Cam Hayward, and that's why we couldn't run the ball. It's Dwayne Smoot and Taven Bryant. So, yeah.
Taven Bryant, who, as I think you said earlier, had 3.5 sacks going into this game, was largely written off as a bust for all intents and purposes. And then yesterday just, look, 2 sacks. That's just, it's just so frustrating. You're going to hear me make lots of like weird noises throughout this podcast because I think that's really the only way to describe what happened in this game. Just, it was a weird game. Right. And I'm not looking at this Bills offense now, or I'm not looking at this Bills team and saying they're a bad team, right? Like teams have off days, but this is now 2 weeks in a row that the Bills offense has struggled. Last week, they made adjustments in the second quarter. They didn't pay off until the second half. That ultimately, helps the team come out and put up however many points to put on Miami. But this game, I don't know I didn't watch the game back today. I'll be honest. I gave you my Game Pass login with the funny password. So I just, I trusted my instinct. Like I didn't see any in-game adjustments, or if they did, like they didn't work. Like, I don't know. We'll go back to the offensive line. Like Cody Ford is not a player who should be playing right now. As you said, like they're just trying to see if there's anything there, but there just isn't. He's in year 3. He hasn't looked good really in any year. Like I got into an argument with my friend yesterday, who's a big Oklahoma fan, who was telling me that Cody Ford's actually good. It's coaching. They're not sticking him, they're not letting Cody Ford stick at any position long enough to see if he's good or not. And it's like, well, the reason why they keep switching him is because he sucks at every position.
Right.
Like that's rude. But he just he hasn't shined at any position. So they're trying to get the most out of him, right? They're trying to see what his position is, trying to put him in the best position to succeed, literally and metaphorically. But it's just, he's just not succeeding, and it's fine, right? Like if he's just not good, he's not good. Don't play him. And they didn't plan to, obviously. They got backed into a corner this week, but he can't be on the field. Like Ike Butker is in year 4. Like Ike Butker also isn't, like they just have no depth. They have no, they don't have the depth that you would want a team with their aspirations to have on the offensive line. And for a team that preaches as often as Bean and McDermott do about being strong, on both lines, strong in the trenches, for them to have this offensive line is just almost unbelievable. It's just weird.
Yeah, and I don't think many teams in the NFL have depth on the offensive line where you could
Right.
lose a starter and say you're confident with their backup coming in and playing well. But the thing is that Cody Ford is not a starting caliber player. And I think for some reason, everyone outside the building saw that before going into training camp, but the Bills didn't. And I mean, it's just wild. And Sean Feliciano, I think, is a replacement level player that they had a lot of faith in as well. So it's just big missteps during the offseason and mischaracterizations of their talent level. And I don't know where to go from here. I mean, you're in the middle of the season, the trade deadline's passed, and there's not much you can do. You're looking at really other teams' practice squads, I don't think you're going to get much there for an offensive line play that can come in and make a difference. So I think it is what it is at this point, and the onus is on Brian Dable and Bobby Johnson to really figure something out and put these guys in a position where this offense can be serviceable. Because last year, this was one of the most explosive offenses in the league, and I think teams were still playing too high versus them, but this offensive line was largely the same. So I think something's got to make some adjustments.
They really do. There were a few good comments here. Spin writes, what is it with Ryan Bates? Is he just not good or something? Eric sent a tweet earlier, which I thought summed it up nicely. Like, I think they see his value as being like the versatile guy, right? Like, we can play him everywhere if we need to. But as you said earlier, Rob, like, if when you need to play him, you're not, like, that just, that I don't know. I just don't know, right? They've been trying to get him to catch a touchdown pass for years. Maybe that's his only role. Maybe that's his only value. Bates can't be worse than Ford. I don't know. I just don't know. Try Douglas, for Christ's sake. I think they're going to, right? I think they might.
I think they have to. I mean, he played all right in the preseason, but you have to exhaust all options at this point, because you cannot confidently put Cody Ford out there. I mean, you can't have Sean McDermott go to a press conference and say Cody Ford's going to start and look someone in the eyes in the media there or the fans and say that Cody Ford gives us the best option to win when you haven't exhausted your other options. So I don't know.
Upsetting talk, right? Very depressing talk we just had about the Bills' offensive line.
And
what's frustrating is that, like, there's not an easy way out of it, right? Mm-hmm. It's just kind of wait and see. Like, they could make midweek adjustments coaching wise, but, like, is that going to make Cody Ford a better player? Is that going to make Ike Butker a better player? I don't know. It hasn't so far. Like,
yeah. And it's tough because this was the fifth offensive line combination that they've had this season. So it's tough because with communication and passing off stunts and things like that, and expecting guys to be in one spot, like offensive line, any offensive lineman will tell you, like, that it's a position where you need to have, like, synergy along that group with each other and feel where each other are and know their tendencies and how they're going to react to different things. And when you keep shuffling guys in and out, it's mistakes are going to happen. But I mean, passing off stunts like that and Cody Ford just, like, running full speed out of the play and letting a free rusher through, it was embarrassing. It was laughable watching it. It really was funny to watch at some point at the end of the day. So
yeah, then Darrell Williams on one of the last plays just didn't pick up the guy. The guy just ran by him. Nick writes, Kyle, I heard on Twitter that you were going to hop in there. I did offer to play some offensive guard for the Bills. I honestly don't think I'm big enough anymore. I don't know if I can play offensive guard. I could try, though, right? I could do one of the Thanksgiving meal things that they do. There was another comment here. I can't find it. So maybe Bobby Johnson sucks. That's a take. I'm not gonna get into it. So I think we've had enough offensive line talk. So Rob, what is your first takeaway from this game? That's the first takeaway.
so rolling off of the offensive line, I'm going to say don't blame Josh Allen. This is a guy He completed 66% of his passes for 264 yards and 2 interceptions, and he lost a fumble. And he said after the game, he played like shit, and rightfully so, he did. And but I think when you have an offensive line that's not giving you the time to do anything, that's really not giving you any favorable down and distance in the run game, he's going to have to resort to making these wild plays because he knows it's the only chance that the offense has to get anything done. He's going to roll out and try to keep plays alive and force passes because nothing else is working, and he doesn't have time to run the offense on schedule. So while it was a bad performance, I really think that anybody who's saying that Josh Allen is at fault for this, I've seen a few people saying it's time to put Mitch Trubisky in after that performance. I don't think that's
he has COVID, and he got an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, so he can't be doing that.
Yeah, so I just think that you can't blame Josh Allen for this loss. I mean, I was harsh on him early in the season after the slow start, but after yesterday, I'm not putting any of the blame on him. I mean, it was just a rough outing all around.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I'm trying to pull up Allen's stats here now. 31 of 47 for 264 yards, 2 interceptions. Obviously not a great outing from Josh Allen, but like when he's under pressure, when he has pressure coming from every direction, right? Seemingly, every direction on most plays, it's just going to be tough for any quarterback to succeed. That being said, there were a few plays that he obviously wants back, right? Like, right. With, I think both interceptions, the first interception,
they're both bad picks,
like the Josh Allen pick on Josh Allen. Like that was frustrating, right? Because if I remember correctly, wasn't it Allen kind of like running backwards, just tried to get the ball away and it went right to Josh Allen?
Yeah.
It was hilarious when he ran away and then pointed at his name as though he is the superior Josh Allen. I laughed. That would be like me getting a sword, like one of the fencing swords, going up behind Hungarian gold medal fencer Aaron Silagyi and just like poking him and then saying, I'm the best fencer. Like, right. It's just all the evidence suggests that, no, he's the better fencer. But in that moment, I'm the better fencer. So, yeah, now everyone knows Aaron Silagyi, Hungarian gold medal fencer. That's what you come to the
This is what these are what the people need. But yeah, man, I mean, the offensive line was just so bad. I mean, 15% of the passes were screens. I think he had 12 targets to running backs. Just there was nothing happening downfield, and they really didn't have time to let plays develop to take shots downfield. Things started to open up in the second half or late in the game where he had a couple deep passes, but there was really nothing there all game long. And you can't, for as much of a negative person that I can be when it comes to critiquing the Bills, I'm not going to put this one on Allen's shoulders. So
no, I certainly he is not. The blame or the loss cannot be placed on his shoulders, or the blame for the loss cannot be placed on his shoulders, I don't think, because it was the offensive line that it just really didn't give him the chance to succeed. But also he wasn't great. A few boneheaded decisions, but what are you going to do? Right? Like, it was just a medley of shit, if you will. We're already saying shit, so might as well just double down on it. So yeah, I think I'll move on to my second takeaway, which is that the defense played well. There is one thing to talk about that was good in this game, and that was the Bills' defense. The Jaguars finished the game with 218 net yards. The Bills had 301. The Jaguars only rushed for 79 yards, high average 3.2 yards per carry. Oh, that was another thing that we haven't mentioned, Rob. The Jaguars not only beat the Bills, they beat the Bills without their best player. Like, James Robinson was out for this game. Like, obviously, it did play a role because the offense did nothing throughout the entire game. The Bills' defense shut them down, only scored 9 points. It was just the Bills' offense could not be there to answer. So, yes, going back to the Bills' defense, really shut them down on the ground again, only 79 yards. Trevor Lawrence was not a world beater by any means, had 118 yards, QBR of 69, nice 0.1. Their leading receiver had 60 yards. That was Dan Arnold. The Bills had 2 receivers that had more than 60 yards. So, like, say what you will, the Bills' offense, as bad as they were, maybe outplayed Jacksonville's offense yesterday. Like, I don't want to give the Bills offense credit for anything, but like at the end of the day, Jaguars also couldn't get in the end zone. It was just it was just bad, right? 9 total points. That's not going to win you many football games. Certainly shouldn't win you any football games against the Buffalo Bills. It just did yesterday. Again, the Bills defense kept them out of the end zone, limited them to 9 points, got some pressure throughout the game. Epinesa had a sack. Epinesa back in the lineup, got a sack. And then they also forced a turnover at an opportune time. So the defense did what they had to do, right? The defense kept the Bills in the game throughout the entire contest. Just the offense wasn't there to answer the call.
Yeah, and they held Jacksonville, I think, to 2 of 13 on third down. So they were just not able to move the ball. And this was a game where I said it before the show with you. It was like you just think all you need is one drive to put the ball in the end zone and the game's over for Buffalo. But they just couldn't get it done. But it was a defensive performance that I didn't think anyone really stood out. Like it was a wow game from anybody, but they just played well. They stuffed the run. They didn't give up any big plays in the passing game, and really they beat themselves. I mean, if you just look at the box score of Jacksonville, you say that Bills smoked them, but it just didn't shake out that way, and it's tough to see. I think Joe Marino posted a tweet when he showed the stats of the quarterbacks that beat the Bills, their stat lines, and it's just like, man, like this defense has been lights out all season, and they're 5-3 when they probably should be 7-1.
Truly, like it's just if the people in chat can't tell, I'm very frustrated with this game, just because there's no reason, there's no good reason they should have won this or they should have lost this game. Even looking back on it now, like the Bills defense just shut them down. Trevor Lawrence was, a rookie quarterback. They didn't have James Robinson. They had Carlos Hyde, who didn't really excel at any point in the game. Their biggest, am I right in saying that their biggest play of the game was CJ Beathard coming in for his arm punt to Dan Arnold?
Yeah, that was the biggest play of the game. I think for either side, it might have been the longest, right? I think it was, yeah. Oh, Diggs had a breakdown. Diggs had a 28-yard catch too, so.
Brilliant, right?
Tied it.
I love that they did go, right? They did kind of switch. This is getting off the defense. I mean, we've said what we need to say about the defense, but the defense was good. There's the wrap up. But they did try to do the Pittsburgh from last year game plan, at some point, right? Where it was just get the ball to Diggs. There was 2 or 3 plays in a row where they just threw it to Diggs and let him, do what Stephon Diggs does. That was after not using him throughout the majority of the game up to that point. Mm-hmm. What are you going to are we talking about the offense? Do we have any more offensive points? Yes, I think we do have another offensive point. So Rob, I will throw it over to you. What is your second takeaway from this game?
I think that just defenses know how to play the Bills offense right now. They're going to keep their safeties back, and Josh Allen isn't going to test them. They know that this isn't an offense that's going to do that. They're going to play too deep, force them to run the ball early on those early downs, put them in third down situations, and then they're going to blitz. And the offensive line just doesn't know how to pick up a blitz. They're going to pressure Allen and force him out of the pocket and just keep those safeties deep, and they're going to keep the throws underneath. We've seen it all season long. The receivers aren't getting that great separation, and they're not getting anything after the catch. And I think that's why we're seeing we're waiting for Stephon Diggs' breakout game. And he just keeps having they're quality games. He's putting up 6, 7, 8 catches for 80, 90, 95 yards a week, but he's really not having those explosive run after the catch plays like we saw last season. And nobody is. We saw Cole Beasley get 8 catches, I think, for 35 yards. It's just crazy.
It's laughable.
And the thing is, I said something earlier on Twitter. I was like, it's okay to say that these two deep safeties are just shutting everything down if they're quality. But you're saying Rayshawn Jenkins and Rudy Ford were playing too deep, so we just had to force it underneath. You have Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, and you're just taking what the defense gives you. No, you've got to force the issue and test them and see if these guys can cover before you say, oh, it's just taken away at this rate, because I don't think just taking what the defense gives you and playing flat and playing soft is just not working.
Yeah, like I think David wrote about it in his recap yesterday, but just like the talent discrepancy between these two teams, like take
Mhm.
advantage of that. They just didn't.
Right. Right. You have Stephon Diggs. You've shown against Xavier Howard. He can moss Xavier Howard, but then you're going to say, oh, Rudy Ford's back there playing over the top. Like, we're going to check it down to Devin Singletary for the 7th time this game. I just don't understand.
Like, yeah, the Bills have Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley. I don't know if the Jaguars have 3 defensive backs that I can name, but like, just couldn't get anything going. Yeah, it's just how does this get fixed? Like, we're not coaches, obviously, right? But we watch a lot of Buffalo Bills football, so we know that the offense is better than this. We've seen the offense play better than this, right? Like last year and at times this year, the offense has been firing on all cylinders, but the last 2 games just have looked not good, have looked putrid in some cases. So what do they do? How do they circumvent this?
Well, obviously it falls on coaching, but I think it's also on the players. I mean, just it's on the players to play with energy, to play physical, to bring it on Sundays. I mean, they're professionals, and this is what they're paid to do. And obviously these types of games happen not often, but they happen where a team comes out flat and maybe overlooks an opponent. But at the end of the day, I mean, they have the Jets coming up, which is another beatable opponent. They can only look forward. I think if you just dwell on this too long and try to nitpick everything, then you're going to go in circles with yourself. You know what the issue is. It's the offensive line and some issues, I think, with receivers not getting that much separation, or defenses playing them a different way. But you've got to have an answer for that as well. I mean, there's always ebbs and flows in the NFL. We remember teams going to the power run and then against the nickel defenses, and then it just switches back a couple years later. So I think Brian Dable just needs to have an answer and figure out a way other than screens and checkdowns to running backs to attack defenses when they're beating you up front. So easier said than done, but
truly, there's some OBJ talk in the chat. Odell Beckham Jr., of course, got cut by Cleveland. I think today it actually became official, so I think we'll figure out tomorrow if anyone claimed him. So is OBJ fixing the offensive issues? Could he play guard?
I don't know if he could play guard, but at this rate, I don't know. Bring him in, whatever.
Right, just test him out.
Yeah,
like I personally don't think that this offense, the issues get fixed by adding OBJ, because their issue isn't talent, especially not talent at receiver, right? The issue isn't a lack of offensive weapons. It's a lack of offensive protectors, I guess, or it's just coaching to an extent, and it's also the offensive line, as you said. So do either get fixed? I hope so, right? Because we know what this team can be, which is why it's so frustrating. So I think it's time to move on to the next segment, which is what went right and what went wrong. I think we already talked about everything that went right. The Bills' defense played well. Other than that, Tyler Bass probably drilled. I'm just assuming. I don't really remember. Tyler Bass probably drilled a nice field goal, I would assume. Did he? I think he did. Two. Oh, they had 6 points, right? Oh, how could I forget? He scored their only nice point. Oh, Jesus. This game, again, is giving me a mental breakdown. So the sooner we can stop talking about it, the better. So I think we both want to talk about something that went wrong, and that was the discipline in this game. Look, the Bills are an emotional team. They'll be the first to tell you, I think, that they're a relatively emotional team. And yesterday they get 12 penalties for 118 yards. Now, there's been some sentiment in the chat, which I agree with. This game was over officiated, ridiculously over officiated. They were calling everything. And also, they were often calling things on the wrong people. This officiating crew was not good, out of sync for the most part. Again, it just to the point where you're consistently getting guys' names wrong, or not names, getting guys' numbers wrong. Like you're calling a guy on the COVID list for, unsportsmanlike conduct. Like, sorry, he can't control whether or not he gets COVID. It's everywhere. He can't control that. You can't call him for that. It's just. The officiating was bad, but that being said, this isn't like a new thing for the Bills, right? They're always they always get a lot of flags, I feel like. Officiating, what did I write here? This season, they have 75 total flags. That is the second most in the NFL. Just one behind the league leader in Dallas. Again, just you can't shoot yourself in the foot in any game, especially not against teams like Jacksonville.
Yeah, 3 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties or unnecessary roughness calls are just, it comes down to discipline. It's not a fluky hold or an interference. Like, those are things you can control. And then the taunting call on the converted on Levi Wallace, I think it was called, he got called for taunting after the Jaguars converted a 4th down. So that was odd that was odd as well. But just things like that, they're just penalties that they have to clean up. Just in the last 4 games, they've been flagged 39 times for like 358 yards or something like that. Just something ridiculous. And it has to be cleaned up. I mean, this is on the coaching staff. End of story.
I was talking about this with my friend before the show. Timothy writes, McDermott even gave the players a heads up that this officiating crew led the league in unsportsmanlike flags. What is going on? Like, Charles writes, bad teams blame the refs, good teams overcome. Yes, I do not want it to seem like I am in any way blaming the officiating crew. I can say they did bad, but also the Bills weren't disciplined whatsoever. Like I said, I think it was during the Chiefs recap that we did. I think we talked about the officiating, and I was like, I don't want to blame the officiating either way, which I'm going to continue. Now that the Bills are on the other side, I'm going to continue to say I'm not going to blame the officiating, for the loss. But the officiating wasn't good. I think we can all agree that the officiating was not good yesterday for either team, right? It was just an over-officiated game. That being said, the Bills need to be more disciplined moving forward, which Sean McDermott would be the first person to tell you that.
Yeah, you can't blame the referees. I mean, even the Jaguars had 8 penalties of their own, so it's not like they were just picking on Buffalo, like it's not like some people will lead you to believe. But no, I mean, flags have been an issue all season for them. It's crazy. I think they've had at least 8 penalties in 6 games so far this season, or something crazy like that. So it's something they need to clean up, and I don't know how they do that, but it's the unsportsmanlike calls and the unnecessary roughness. Those are things that are in their control. The holds and the interferences and things like that aren't, to an extent, but those dumb penalties are things that are fully their responsibility to fix.
Am I misremembering this? Because I will admit that I went up to go to the bathroom, but I think it was on the Jaguars' first drive. They called Tavon Austin, I think, for an unsportsmanlike or something like that. Then they reversed it.
Then they switched it. Yeah. To Buffalo. Yeah. It was like a 2-minute long sequence. Like the teams were lining up or were like going back to the sidelines and coming back out. And then they switched who the team was. It was very strange. Set the tone.
Really did.
For an awful early, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like that, in the group chat, people were saying, "Oh, I got a bad feeling about this game now." It's like, you shouldn't, right? Don't be too nervous. Well, I think that wraps up what went wrong. I think we both had officiating. So, but I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about what went wrong in this game, right? Coaching probably being one of them. Heard a lot of people saying on Twitter that this was the worst game of the McDermott era, worst coached game of the Sean McDermott era. 2018 was a real bad year. I don't know if people remember 2018. I unfortunately remember a lot of 2018, but like that being said, I actually agree, because like in 2018, no one expected the Bills to be good,
to win,
right?
Yeah.
Whereas this year, they're a Super Bowl contender losing to the 1-win Jacksonville Jaguars, whose coach, is out doing whatever he's doing. So yes, I actually do agree that that's probably one of the worst Bills losses in recent memory, and probably the worst coached game of the Sean McDermott era. Just, do you have any thoughts about the coaching?
No, I think we've covered everything.
All right. Well, that was the Buffalo Bills loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. If there's anything else that people want us to touch on, just bring it up in chat. But I think we're going to move on to a brief not Jags. Oh God. It's stuck. It's going to stick
Run
with
it
me.
back. Run it back.
A brief Jets preview. Charles writes, they were picking on Trey White to start the game. They really were. I think, Laviska Shenault, my dude, kind of went after Trey White a little bit. And then, Tavon Austin. I think that's, what the whole unsportsmanlike thing stemmed from. So, John writes, I'm past it. Bring on the Jets. I agree, John. Thank you for that segue. So the Bills are going to play the New York Jets this week. Jesus. See, last week I was so confident. I said the Bills are going to beat the Jaguars. I think everyone said the Bills are going to beat the Jaguars. So the Bills should beat the Jets. The Bills should beat the Jets. Mike White looks likely to start this week, I guess, according to Robert Saleh. I thought I read that Zach Wilson would be healthy, but I guess that's switched. Michael Carter is a real fun player who has seen his snaps increase. Of course, the rookie running back out of UNC was kind of overshadowed by Javonte Williams. Maybe still is. In the NFL, Javonte Williams might be the more explosive player, but Michael Carter still a very fun running back who has making some noise recently in New York. Their receiving core is a receiving core. They got guys. They have Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, Denzel Mims, Elijah Moore, a lot of fun players, right? And then defensively, CJ Mosley, Marcus May, Quinn and Williams. They have guys, but I said the same thing about the Jaguars. They just don't have a team that should beat the Bills. And Charles writes in chat, who the hell is blocking Quinn and Williams? Cody Ford, presumably. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even worried about the players that the Jets have on offense. I mean, the Bills defense has been great, but Quinn and Williams and John Franklin Myers, even Bryce Huff's looked good as a situational rusher. I mean, that's a defensive line that's tough, and they've played hard all season long. I think that it's going to come down to the matchup up front, and obviously, when you take a step back, it's a winnable matchup when you look at all the different players across the board on defense. But in a vacuum, coming off that loss to the Jaguars, you're looking at Quinn and Williams and you're saying, I don't think we have an answer for him, and it's going to be a rough afternoon. But I think the Jets are a beatable opponent. The Bills defense should handle their offense. They should, and we'll see.
Yeah, man.
The Bills are 14.5 point favorites right now. So
why? Are they home or are they away? No, they're in New Jersey, right?
In New Jersey, yep.
Wasn't last year the game in New Jersey? Wasn't that like a real big stumble? They won, but I thought the team didn't perform that well against the Jets in New Jersey last year. I could be wrong, but yeah, Magic Mike White. What did I just say? Magic Mike White. Jesus. This is not the Jaguars have destroyed my brain. Again, the Bills should win this game. I'm not going to get worked up. The Bills should win this game. But I guess we'll talk about it next week, right? They have players, but I think it's safe to say that the Bills are the better team, and the Bills should probably win a game against what is a rebuilding Jets team with not a rookie quarterback, but what is essentially a rookie quarterback. Yeah, I think that wraps up Jets preview. The people want hot takes, Rob. The people have been going crazy. That's all they want from us. They want hot takes. So what is your hot take for this upcoming week's game?
My hot take is the Jets cover the 14.5 point spread, but the Bills win. So it's about as hot as I'm getting this week.
I'm going to piggyback off that. My hot take is that the Buffalo Bills win against the New York Jets. I know. That's a hot take, right? People are saying, after losing to the Jags, you think they're going to beat the Jets? I do think they're going to rebound, right? They're too good of a team. I think just to wrap it up, right, this whole conversation, which kind of ties into the hot take, to put a bow on this, like, we know what the Bills are. We know they are a good team, and that's what makes the issue so glaring, and that's what makes the issue so frustrating to watch, right? You know that Josh Allen is an MVP quarterback. Someone is yelling outside my room. I apologize. But you know that Josh Allen is an MVP caliber quarterback. You know that Stephon Diggs is an all-pro. You know that Emmanuel Sanders is an all-timer. You know that Cole Beasley is probably the best slot receiver in the league. They just need to I don't know. They just need to get back on the page, right? It's on the same page. And that probably starts with the offensive line. But unfortunately, Feliciano won't be back this week. So it doesn't look like Spencer Brown will be. So, or I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that one.
McDermott said he'll be in practice Wednesday. So it's encouraging.
Well, we'll see, the role in which he is participating in practice. If it's limited, we'll see. That gives us hope. That gives us hope moving forward. So I think that wraps up this week's podcast. 50 minutes of Jags talk, which I think we expected that last week, but we didn't expect the conversations to be this somber. Justin writes exactly what I was going to say. My hot take is the Bills win. We're on the same page, right? If you would have told me at the start of this season that after the Jags game, the hot take was going to be that, that the Bills are going to beat the Jets, I would have been like,
they'd have 3 losses halfway through the season. What a year.
What a year. They beat the Chiefs. Well, everyone beats the Chiefs nowadays. So, thank you guys for watching. We very much appreciate you guys sticking through the chat for communicating with us. We had a great time, and I hope you all did as well. Make sure to subscribe to the Cover One YouTube channel, subscribe to the Cover One Roundup on iTunes, leave a review. That would be much obliged if you could do that. Make sure to follow Cover One on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, wherever you follow websites. I'm sure Cover One's there and you can easily find them. Make sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. Again, use promo code Cover One. You can also, if you're interested, subscribe to the Cover One Premium Slack or Cover One Premium. In there, you will have access to the Cover One Premium Slack, which gives you access to a burgeoning community of Buffalo Bills fans who you can communicate with whatever you want, right? There's always some fun and fascinating conversations going on over there. It's an affordable price, and again, great community that we fostered, that we've built over there, and it's check it out if you're interested. You can also follow Rob on Twitter at
Rob Quinn 619,
and you can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Silagyi. It's spelled right there, so not spelled like Hungarian gold medal fencer Aaron Silagyi. He puts a Z in his name, but it's the same name, I promise. That'll be our next roundup will be a Silagyi family lore history lesson of how the Z got dropped. So make sure to tune in for that next week. Thank you guys for watching.